So what you see here is the Nordfjord Museum. And some of you may have been there on the folk art tours or on yourself. It is in Sandana. And it was here that my interest in this style of rosemaling began. In the next slide, you'll see two maps of Norway. The one on the left is the whole region of Norway. And in the red, you can see where the county or the fylke that the Nordfjord area is in, and that's called Sogn og Fjordane. And on the right, you will see specifically the Sandana area where some of this, where a lot of this was made. Okay, next. So rosemaling that is found in Nordfjord is quite unique in its composition. It has large flowers, it has geometric shapes on the bottom. It doesn't have a lot of what you would think of as like telemark or Rogel and some of the more known styles. But in the next slide, you can see this bowl is Trondelag. And these two styles, the Nordfjord and the Trondelag, are probably the closest in designs, but yet they're still unique to themselves. And in the next slide, you'll see that the tradition, I should say that the tradition is really based around Breum. And if we went back to the slide, or if we can go forward to the slide of the map, you'll see, can you point out Sandana? It's kind of right in the middle of the screen. And if you go down, to Björkelo, Breum is a small area that's between Sandana and Björkelo. And that was the epicenter of the styles of, or the epicenter for making and painting the Nordfjord beer bowls. And this is where farmers in the winter would turn their bowls and paint their bowls because fishing was not an industry in this area, but farming was. And we all know what the little farming you can do in the winter. So here is another, all of these bowls are either from the Nordfjord Museum from when I was there, and there are a few from the Vesterheim Museum also. But most of the bowls that are found, you can go back or stay on this one. Most of the bowls that are found from research that has been done in the area is that they were made from roughly 1720 and died out about 1930. And the next slide has is another style of the Nordfjord painting, and the height of the style of the painting, and it was most popular during the 1950s, or I'm sorry, the 1850s through the 1880s. Here's a picture at the Nordfjord Museum from the 2016 folk art tour, when they brought out all the bowls that they had for us to look at. And the Nordfjord Museum has over 40 bowls in their collection. And unfortunately, or sadly, Vesterheim only has 4. But maybe over time we can work on bumping that number up. So in the 1930s, this is when most of the bowls were relegated to the cellars and to barns and went out of use. They went out of use, like I said, in the 1930s, but they were used in the Eid, such as in Nordfjord Eid area, until the 1950s. Next. and then a little longer up into the 60s, maybe in the Hornindal area. So on the next slide, you can see how they were meant to be used, and yet we now look back at them as really good, fun, wonderful pieces of folk art. Because they were used, and they were truly used, you will see this bowl has a crack in it, and a lot of the bowls would have cracks and chips. But they were not cared for as we care for them today as an artifact, because they were part of the life of the farm and the rural areas about. They were made from a variety of local woods, such as alder, pine, birch, linden, and aspen. So let's talk about colors. Next, you'll see that most of the bowls are some form of an earthy red. And if we go to the next slide, you will see background colors, as I said, mostly red. You may see some trim or a little bit of black on as a second color on the outside of the bowl. But the Rosemaled colors are it's a very limited palette. You have black and a blue. And the blue, because it's mostly done on a red background, you can mix black and white, and it comes off as a gray blue. A cadmium yellow light, chromium oxide green, and English red. And the green was made from mixing together black and yellow ochre. And then there was a white. It could have been titanium white. That's what we would use today, and yellow ochre. And one thing about these bowls is that most of them have some type of lettering on the outside. And the lettering is usually done in a yellow ochre, sometimes black, and occasionally white. But I'm going to talk more about the lettering as we go on. The next slide will show you the two basic shapes of the Nordfjord bowl. The one on the left shows the bowl that is on some type of a pedestal. And that pedestal can be quite short. It can be a little bit taller, but there's always usually a larger rim along the outside. And then on the right is a more traditional shallow bowl without the pedestal. In the next slide, you'll see that they used stylized tulips, which we see in many, many other styles of Rosemaled. And Andrew, if you could point out the tulips on the right. Yep, pretty funky. And then the tulips on the right look a little bit more like what we would think of as a tulip shape. But you will see that there's no blending and there's no shading. It's not a overworked style of Rosemaled. And then in the next few slides, you're going to see that some examples of the geometric shapes. Here you see the diamonds on the border, on the inside of the border with the circles. And then the next one, you will see the circle and then the square with the triangles in the bottom. And you also see a diamond shape on the side. And again, some stylized tulips are those flowers that we see going around it. But no, you can stay on that one for 1 second. Yeah, that even we don't know for sure what the artist was thinking when it was painted. But some of what you see on here are protection symbols, symbols to bring, if this was for some type of feast, good luck for the feast, a good luck for the beer that would be going into this bowl, maybe the marriage, whatever. And when you see the cross hatching and it's enclosed, it is hoped that the evil spirit or the devil or whatever bad thing there is goes into that design. And if it's enclosed, then it can't get out. And that's to ensure protection of whatever they're thinking of for the use of that. The next one slide, you'll see a large cross on the bottom. Again, we don't know if it was meant for protection. It's geometrics are great and easy design. And you're going to see that some of these painters really were not the best painters, but that's okay. And then you also see that webbing or that lattice work on the bottom that is enclosed to keep the evil spirit from getting out. And in the next slide, this one I think is quite lovely. And I really don't know where I got this picture. But you can see a lot of design elements in this. On the rim, you have in the back, the round flower with the cross of protection. And then you can just faintly see some red petals. And that's a little bit more of a developed design that you don't see a lot. And then the geometric signs, diamond shapes on the sides. This bowl, I think, is really lovely. And then the next slide. Now I'm going to show you some that are not so geometric, but that they use a large flower on the bottom. And those are a little bit more, I would say a little bit more Hollingdale-like, but don't confuse it with Hollingdale. And in the next slide, you'll see another big flower on the bottom. And when you look at the top yellow petal on the, what is that, top left, you can see how the tips, yes, right there, Andrew, the tips are connected. I just think that's kind of fun. But that's not the same when you go over to the petal on the right. So it has a look and a feel of symmetry, but it certainly isn't symmetrical. And then again, you see that we can go back for 1 second. Great. Again, the cross hatching in the bottom. And that really, I think, is it's a fun design element. It's something that most of us can do. And by having those yellow dots in the middle, it brings the eye to the root of the design, which in this case is that middle or that center of that large flower. All right, in the next slide, this one I think is kind of funky. Whoever painted this really loved dots. But I think it gives it a bit, I think it's charming. But then on the outside rim, you can see the cross, the 4 petaled flowers that look like cross. Again, maybe for protection, maybe not. But the design on the bottom, again, is a large flower. And if there was more to if we could see more of it, there's actually petals that are within the green petals, and then there's a smaller flower right in the very middle. But look at the lovely teardrops that follow the outside or the inside curve of the green petals. When you look at this, I think the only way that it can really be executed well is with round brushes, and probably a couple of sizes, a smaller and a larger size. And then in the next slide, you'll see a combination of a large center flower with the center of the flower being a geometric shape, the square, and then the X's and the cross. So it's like two crosses. And excuse me. And so again, look at the limited palette. It's black and white and yellow. Excuse me, yellow ochre. And I think the lighting doesn't show it all around, but there's also some of that blue that is made up of the black and white on the two side petals of the large flower on the bottom. And then in the next picture, you will see a lot of teardrops in the middle. But again, it's a large flower that is making up the bottom, the root of the motif, and it's on the bottom of the bowl. And this one, I think it's kind of fun, especially if you're a farmer who uses John Deere tractors with the green and yellow next to one another. And the inside rim is actually quite nice. And that design could be used on many different styles of rosemaled. So when you are looking at this, even though it says Nordfjord, you can bring it into your own painting, some of the elements into different styles. And then if we look at the next one, we will also see a flower, a little bit different shape because it has those wings going up, four of them in the corners, or pointing out, because circles don't have corners, obviously. But it also has some really nice crosses in the rim. And there's also, again, this rim and the dots are very similar to that previous bowl that we saw with the dots. So most of these pictures that you have seen thus far have either been from the Nordfjord Museum or from the Digital Museum online for Norway. And so now let's take a look at the pieces from Vesterheim. And so we can see that this bowl has all the hallmarks. It has the large flower on the bottom. It has the stylized tulips on it. It's a bowl that is on a pedestal or a foot. And I think in Norwegian, that's called a fat. And then it has a wide rim on the outside. Well, a wide rim that obviously is both inside and outside, but the outside has the lettering, and the inside rim is also decorated. And you can see how they were hand lathed in the bottom right picture. The next bowl we'll look at is also in the Vesterheim collection. I'm guessing, and Jennifer, would you say that there probably was a design in the bottom of that bowl?
Yeah, probably at some point in its life.
Yeah, beer can sometimes take that away. But it does have a very, very lovely design on the inside rim. And it's kind of that stacking of flower, a center motif, and then I suppose if you want to call them leaves, and they go into something else. And you do see that type of inside rim on the Nordfjord bowls. And then in the middle, we have an example, or we can see the lettering. And so many of the bowls the lettering was just very, very beautiful. And if we could line up all the pictures of all of the bowls and look at their lettering, we could start to see possibly groups of makers. So in other words, based on the lettering, we might know that 2 or 3 bowls in a collection were painted by that person. And then the picture on the right again shows the stand or the pedestal that the bowl has. And then the next picture, it's possibly another Nordfjord bowl. It does have that big flower on the bottom, but it's more of a bowl shape. Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about this one? Was this the one that Nils said maybe was or wasn't Nordfjord?
Yeah, probably, or some nearby place. Yes.
Yeah. The colors are a teeny bit different, but the lettering on the inside is typical. It's the same hands, same script that I have seen on other bowls, and it's kind of funky. Those teardrops on the outside, the orange ones, the 4 that are going the same direction are nice, really nice, but I don't get what the person, other than trying to use up space with those other 2 teardrops that are growing into the back of the 4 teardrops. Excuse me. So then the next slide is also part of the Vesterheim collection. And it also has a round bottom. And here you can see an actual star shape. And this one, I think if I just saw it without knowing much about it, it would be hard for me to identify this as Nordfjord, because it does resemble so much of the Trondelag bowls. But I don't think we need to get hung up on knowing exactly where it came from. Look at it with an artist's eye. So what on there do you like? What can you use? Okay, and then I think we have one more that these 2 are probably from Trondelag, but you can kind of see some of the similarities. With the big flower, the geometrics on the bottom, they do have not all, I shouldn't say that, but they both of these have some saying on them. And on the bowl on the right, if you look at the bright orange flowers, again, another stylized tulip. So I want to talk to you a little bit about lettering. There's this book, Old Bollerim fra Nordfjord, by John Polas. And it's a book that is still available on the secondary market out of book consortiums out of Norway and Sweden. But this man, John, he went around all of the Nordfjord area, and he was looking at the bowls, but he was taking down all of the sayings, and some of the sayings were the names of the owner. It might have had religious saying on it. There's a lot about what happens if you get drunk and you need to take care in drinking. And there are some that are actually quite they're very, very naughty. And one of the naughtiest goes back into the mid 1700s. So I guess all of that, there's nothing new with that. But when he went around, he found in that area about 500 to 600 unique verses. And so in the next 3 slides, we're just going to be looking at the lettering. And the lettering is, I think it is so beautiful. And it's easy enough to create your own alphabet by looking at one of these bowls. In the next picture, you'll see a more fancy, more script-like lettering. And this one would be the name, this one would have the owner's names on it. It looks like probably a husband and a wife. And it's the same on the next bowl. It has 2 names. Probably, that one probably is not just one name, and it's the name of the owner. But look at how the artist has made that feather between the beginning of the lettering, and then it ends with that painted in 1869. The next will show some of my lettering and working out some of the sayings and just to get a feel for lettering. I don't think lettering is my strongest suit, and I really need to spend a lot more time practicing it. And then the next one is also some lettering that I tried. As you can see, I'm not a great letterer, but it's fun to do, and I am beginning to work on my lettering a bit more. When you go, if you want to go to the next slide, Andrew, you will see a template, and I thought I was going to be really smart. I Googled, okay, how to make a 12-pointed circle, or a circle broken into 12s or 10ths or 8ths. And I'm bad at math. So what I have done is I went online and found templates. And these templates are needed because when you look at the bottom of the bowls, you can certainly guess at it, but it's nice to know your points. And so when I start, I will chalk out my template on the bottom, and it really takes care of getting helping the design stay as it should without getting too crazy out of balance. So I always use templates, and I have a whole bunch from 4ths, which I know you can fold the paper into 4ths or into 8ths. But I have it from templates from 4 all the way up to 12ths. Because 12, I have seen an example of 12 sections in the bottom of a Nordfjord bowl. And the next bowl is one that is in my collection. And I think it's kind of fun because it says that it was painted by A.R.K. Wouldn't it be when he was 87 years old? Wouldn't it be fun to know who that was? But here, this is a little bit different in that it has more those little black flowers around the outside of the big petal bottom. They're not a typical flower, but I think that when you see these exceptions, that gives us freedom to experiment and put into our painting something of us. The next bowl, you'll see a star shaped, and this one just is kind of a silly little bowl, but it has the star shape that you would typically see more in Hollingdal. But again, if you're the painter, you can make it your own, and you have that that freedom to make it your own. The next bowl was given to me. There was someone on, it must have been the 2018 folk art tour, and she found this, I believe, in a secondhand shop in I think somewhere in Sweden. And but it's most definitely a Nordfjord bowl, and it even has the shape. I should have taken a picture of the shape. But what is really interesting about this bowl is that on the outside, the saying is, I was created in a crisis to bring beauty to life. And the date of this is during the occupation, during World War II of Norway. And I thought that was really interesting that in those conditions, people were still creating. Now the colors are pretty funky, but it has enough of the elements for us to know that this is from Nordfjord. So the next few pictures is some sketches that I have done, and I have used watercolor to work up some of the designs and to play with and trying to understand the lettering. And it's important to be working with different designs. And this is one of the designs in the book that I showed you, as is the next picture. And again, just playing with it, just because the more you play with it and learn the motifs that are used, you then can eventually branch off and truly make it your own design based on what is traditional. And the next picture is also a design that I worked up in using watercolors to do the painting, just to get a feel for it. And this one has the protection symbols with the teardrops in the round circles on the four sides, and then the very elongated tulip petals with a stylized tulip. And then the last one picture I'm going to show you is one that I started to paint. And I have to say that I'm a bit like the the shoemaker. The things I paint for myself don't get done. I don't know what I'll get this one finished. So that is a brief overview of Rush Through the Nordfjord style of Rosemaled.
Well, that is just absolutely beautiful stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have a few questions that are in the chat, and I'll let Jennifer get us started with those.
Sure. So Cheryl was wondering if you have ever worked with calligraphy pens for lettering.
With Rosemaled on an actual project, I have just discovered calligraphy pens that are filled with acrylic paint. And I think they would work wonderfully with something like this. Because, well, it's easier to control a pen rather than a longer, the bristles on a brush, but I haven't brought it into into Rosemaled yet. But I think if you have a background with that's in acrylic, you could do it, especially if you're using some type of paint, like the new acrylic brush pens.
Excellent. Louise is asking if the farmers turned the bowls themselves before they painted them, or if it was something where one person would turn the bowl and somebody else would do the painting.
From what I gathered in trying to read through that little book, most of the time it was the same people who also did the painting.
Excellent. And how do you put the lettering onto the bowls? Is that a special process that's different from doing the teardrops and things like that, or is it quite similar?
You have to. It is a bit like calligraphy in that you need to put in your bottom line and your top line, and then whatever you decide is going to be the middle for the. You can tell I'm not a calligrapher, for the humpy parts of the letter. And then I will actually chalk in the letter. And when we were looking at some of the things that I have penciled in, sometimes I have even tried to chalk in the exact width of a letter, especially if it's more. There was another one maybe I'm confused. No, if it has thicker lettering, I will actually sketch as thick as I want it. And then I would then paint over that. And with something like that one that we're looking at, I think traditionally it probably was with a round, like a number 2 round. But for me, I would have a better chance of better success using a number 2 flat. But I am anxious to take out my new acrylic brush pens, brushes, and play with that.
Patti, there was a question about the symmetry in the root sort of design or patterns being mostly like 4 pointed flowers or the petals versus 5 or 6. And from what I can see, that's kind of a consistent feature in the Nordfjord designs and in the bowls that we have here at Vesterheim. But I'm wondering, what you have seen in your study, and is this consistent across the board? Is there ever any, something that's asymmetrical or different?
No, I think it is. No, it's everything I have seen has always been symmetrical.
And how do folks transfer the patterns that are designed on a flat round piece into the curve of the bowl? What are the unique tricks for that?
You don't transfer. You can't, especially in a narrow bowl, you cannot transfer. But I do have a special kind of compass that I can move to make. Can you go back to the very last slide, Andrew? Yeah. So you can see some guidelines that I have put down with chalk, and that's made with a special type of compass that I can move the leg up, and so I can have my point in the center, and then I can make the first circle, and then the second circle, and then the third circle. And I was going to see, of course, every time I organize, I don't know where I put things. I could show you, but then I would then it's a matter of cutting down your design. And so for the very center of this design, I would take my template and draw out my square. You can also cut that small part out of your design and lay it down. But it becomes a bit harder as you are going up the curve.
That makes sense.
A lot of, yes.
Go ahead, Patti.
Oh, I was going to say, there's a lot of playing with this style. I still am doing it on a piece of tracing paper, and then looking at it to bring the design into the bowl. But I do it by making guide marks, guidelines. It's not a direct transfer of the whole design.
Well, Patti, you are always a wealth of knowledge, and you've done a lot of research. So Michelle just asked if there are any other published books on Nordfjord other than the book that you showed the group.
Not that I have ever seen. Mm-mm.
And are we right that the one that you shared is written in Norwegian?
Yeah, and it's even in Nynorsk, so it's even worse. Yeah, this one was from 1997 that it was printed in. But you can find it on the secondary market, but not in the US.
And Patti, that book tells us about the sayings that are lettered on the bowls. Is there a place that you would steer people if they're looking for the meanings of the different motifs, if they wanted to learn more about the protection symbols and the cross-hatching to trap evil spirits and the tulips?
Not that I know of. And I only know what I know from on the Vesterheim tours, the scholarly talks. We had one, I think we had him maybe 3 times, Niels Georg Brekke, and he writes about protection symbols, but I don't know if he has anything published, not that I know of. Also, when we visited in Vikstall, we were told about different protection symbols, and the same when we were at the Nordfjord Museum. But we really don't know if that was the intention of the people who painted bowls that we see. But they are motifs that go way back.
Patti, we happen to have a little cheat sheet here at Vesterheim, which I can give to Andrew to send out to the group as a follow-up of the symbols. We had a exhibit a number of years ago called Sacred Symbols, and it was largely to do with textiles, but as you know, those symbols cross the different types of folk art, and so I'd be happy to share that. It's very basic, just to give people an idea of what the meaning of that type of symbol could be. So it's not going to go into depth or any footnoted research like that, but perhaps that would be helpful.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
I'll include
Make sure you include me, Andrew.
Absolutely. I'll include it when I send out the link to the recording later today.
Okay.
Is there a trick to holding the bowls to be able to paint the inner rim? Since you're not able to transfer the pattern onto it, is there a special way that you choose to hold it when you're painting?
Yes, I use a neck pillow that you use for travel, and it has, I don't know, beans or rice or something in it, and then I can shape it and then prop the bowl up so that I can paint on the bottom of the inside edge. Does that make sense? I'm not painting into the bowl, but I have it so it's down.
Excellent. Are there any other unique tricks to painting bowls? Other than the chalking of the guidelines with the compass and the neck pillow magical hack?
I don't know. I don't know what I know.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's that Circle Master.
Yep.
Really is quite helpful when you want to have more than one section on a bowl. Unlike some telemark bowls and other bowls where they have the inside rim, you can see it. Nordfjord bowls, many of them are one smooth surface from the bottom up to the side. And that's where that Circle Master compass is quite handy. I just read what Tina wrote. Yeah, you can break the handles too, Tina. I've done that. So Tina was saying that she breaks the handle of her brush so that she can get it inside of the bowl. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Patti, do you finish any of your bowls so that people could actually use them or drink from them? Someone was asking about how, what you'd use to finish. And I just happen to know that a number of spoon makers will use like walnut oil or some kind of food grade safe oil for making the wood safe to use and also protective. So maybe you have some thoughts about that.
For the most part, I don't put, if it's a piece I'm going to keep, I'm not going to varnish it because I want beer out of a cold glass. But I know that there are food safe finishes. I just don't know them well enough to, off the top of my head, to know what they are.
I'm seeing that there's a question in the chat about when the next Rosemaled tour at Vesterheim is planning to be scheduled. I know that this summer's tours have all been canceled because of COVID, but they are looking ahead to the next couple summers. And Jennifer, maybe you can speak more to that if you have more information than I do.
I'm afraid I don't have more information. No one's invited me to go along, so I'm not in the know. But I do know, yes, that the earliest would be next summer.
Are there any last floating questions out there? Lots of people thanking you for passing on your knowledge about the unique style of rosemaling, because this is quite different from the rosemaling that we're so used to seeing in much of the collection.
Right. It's not as beautiful. I think it's equally charming though. And the designs certainly are not as complex as some other styles. And I'm not even sure that Nils Ellingsgaard has given much print to the style because it just comes from such a small area. But I think it's worth looking at.